Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with a Back 4 Blood character build, and the character we'll be building in this video is Evangelo. Now generally I would say cleaners fall on a spectrum of roles / categories ranging from offensive, supportive, and defensive, and of course the degrees in between as we will uncover throughout this series. Just for consistency, I will define offensive roles and perks as abilities that are directly intended to increase damage or bolster offensive capabilities. Defensive roles and perks will be defined as abilities that directly increase survivability from punishment. Lastly, supportive roles and perks are defined as alternative skills that can be instrumentally used for offensive or defensive purposes without a defined intention for either polarization, but they are ultimately a helpful perk for one's team. First, we will have a brief overview of our chosen cleaner, go through relevant cards that will either synergize or compensate with their attributes, and conclude with what I consider to be the main tactics to maximize the use of their abilities, as well as my closing statements. Now for those who were present during our weapon reviews and deck builds, each weapon-centered deck build came with a character designation. Our format with character builds will be similar but with more priority to a given character and maximizing their role on a given team. So starting off with the character attributes of Evangelo. Evangelo has a natural breakout ability when pinned or grabbed, has increased stamina regeneration by 25%, and has a team effect of increased move speed by 5%. Now in regards to our spectrum, it is the attributes that we will use to designate each cleaner. In Evangelo's case, his breakout ability I would categorize as a defensive perk. His increased stamina regeneration I would classify as a supportive perk. Lastly, his team effect of increased move speed I would also classify as a supportive perk. Stamina and move speed are neither offensively or defensively based attributes, but ones that can be used in either direction. So on our spectrum of categories, Evangelo would be classified as a supportive defenseman. Now in regards to card selection, we can compensate with the more offensive cards and we can synergize with more related and compounding cards depending on needs. And naturally, there is the option of creating a mixture or specialization. Now if you ask me, a quintessential cleaner is not one that is good at everything, but one that fulfills their role in the best manner to aid the overall effectiveness of their team. So starting ourselves off with his deck build, it is important to state that our selections will mainly be geared to his strengths with some attention being paid to areas of need. Additionally, just like our weapon-centered deck builds, I prefer to use my own designations for cards as opposed to what Back 4 Blood has them labeled as. Initially, I will start off with the more compensating cards and then gradually transition into more synergistic / related and compounding cards. Now Evangelo has a natural prowess for speed and evasion, but no health buffing or offensively related perks. Additionally, with these attributes in mind, Evangelo is best paired with an SMG in this onion's opinion, as they also have attributes that go in line with his skills, but this will be uncovered later in our discussion. So our first compensatory card will be Mag Carrier, which increases pistol / SMG ammo capacity and their damage output by 30 and 10% respectively. Next, we have Shredder, which increases damage output by 1% for every landed round and maxes out at 15% additional damage. Rounds, however, must connect within 3 seconds of each other on a given target. Next, I chose Combat Knife. Now I know it is rather popular for Evangelo to be used as a melee-based speedrunner. However, due to the nature of Back 4 Blood, speedrunning will not be a priority in this video, as I don't consider it to be conducive to creating an effective team. Now I chose Combat Knife because it is still an efficient means in eliminating Ridden while allowing one to maintain ranged combat with a primary and secondary weapon, which I would argue is more beneficial, especially on higher difficulties. Carrying on, Evangelo is devoid of any health boosting / preserving perks, so to aid with the Combat Knife choice, I also employ Face Your Fears. This card grants 2 temporary health units whenever one eliminates Ridden within 2.5 meters. Furthermore, I employ Vanguard, which grants 1 temporary health to all nearby cleaners and a given player. This is ultimately intended to compound with his supportive role while also giving him an edge in health preservation. Next, I employ Battle Lust, which grants 2 health units for every melee kill. And lastly, Silver Bullets, which increases damage by 10% and effective bullet range by 15%. Moving on to his synergistic cards, these are cards that are intended to amplify his already established base strengths as a means of transforming Evangelo into his quintessential version. Our first card is Cross Trainers, which increases stamina and its regeneration by 20% each, move speed by 3%, and health by 5 units. Next, we have Fleet of Foot, which increases move speed by 8%. Following, I chose Speed Demon, and this card increases move speed by 4% and reload speed by 35% while using SMGs. Next, Hellfire increases move speed by 45% while firing and 3% while not firing. Marathon Runner eliminates movement penalty from strafe and backpedal. Mandatory PT increases team stamina and their regeneration by 10%. For our last 2 cards, I chose to employ Reload Drills for a 20% buff in reload speed, and then lastly, I chose to employ Energy Drink for a boost in stamina, weapon swap speed, move speed while firing, and slow resistance by 15, 25, 15, and 10% respectively. In total, this will provide Evangelo a compounded move speed of 23% while not firing, as performance will naturally differ while firing. Stamina and its regeneration will also increase by 45% and 55% respectively. Now, with all of these skills in mind, logically I would argue that Evangelo is the type of character that would mainly be at the front of a cleaner team. This is of course assuming a standard formation of perpendicular yet reasonably close-knit positioning while on the move. Given the amount of horsepower he has, it would be a hazardous squander to have him hang back. His skills allow him to be a proactive scouter, and potentially a Hail Mary in the event everybody is down in complete chaos, while the safe room is accessible and not too far away. I have him designated for SMG/pistol use not only because the cards and weapon attributes play with his strengths, but because Evangelo is not necessarily intended to be a hard hitter. Instead, an efficient hitter with the ability to also evade and support his fellow cleaners. Evangelo is the ultimate kiter in Back 4 Blood, and can even be tactically used as a minor sacrifice in the face of a hag or questionable environment where others may not have the prowess to scout quickly and evade. An alternative metaphor for this would be a rodeo bullfighter who was meant to use their agility, speed, and reflexes to protect a rider that has been dismounted or bucked from their bull. Now, this is no shade to Evangelo. They are, after all, extremely important constituents in the survival of their bull riders. Now, everything in this discussion can be taken with a grain of salt, as deck build combinations are too complex to fairly evaluate them. However, this is the build I prefer to use when playing on the Nightmare difficulty. Now, it is paramount to state that team maturity is ultimately what makes any deck work. And for those who were present during our critical comparison between the Barrett and the Phoenix rifle, I speak on this briefly. I'm using maturity as an umbrella term to describe each individual's general understanding of roles, navigation, character and weapon attributes, ridden/mutation deterrent tactics, resource management, and ultimately collaboration, as this is a team-based game. I would also argue that the greater one's team maturity is, the greater efficacy specializations, like the one we just went through, will have, as each person will have a greater understanding of what it means to operate as a unit without being overbearing. Less maturity, however, will likely demand more of a compensating build, so as to provide support where there are more deficiencies. However, there is far more to compensate with than there is to specialize with, and would create an unnecessarily long discussion. Now, Evangelo is only one piece of this giant cleaner pie, but this brings us to the end of our discussion today. Thank you guys for joining me on this one, and in our next video, the cleaner we'll be discussing is Walker, and we'll determine where he sits on our spectrum of roles. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.